Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. We got you guys resting on the car again. This morning, I've actually recorded the process because we're going on tour. We have booked the flights now, we have booked the cars. I've ordered a brand new vlogging setup. We've got a new drone on the way. It's exciting stuff. I cannot wait for Chelsea's pre-season. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the three players that will probably be in the first team squad for next season. Two of them, Marc, Guiu, Renato Vega. We're going to discuss these guys today. We're going to look at what positions they play in. We're going to look at the reasons why they may or may not make the first team squad for next season, as well, of course, as Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who I think out of all three of the new signings that we have made, the likelihood of Dewsbury-Hall featuring the most out of all of these three next season is probably the most likely option, to be quite honest. And what I want to do today is take a look at why all three of these players that Chelsea have confirmed the signings of already in this window are actually perfect to understand when we're talking about, the other day, we're talking about the trust the process line. We're starting to kind of get triggered by it. At least I've been triggered by it for a long time. Let me know the way you feel about it in the comments. But when you look at all three of these new signings, I think it is the individual profiling of what these players can do, and then specifically what their exact roles will be under Enzo Maresca, that even though there might not be like the star name players, the players that you think will be like, all right, well, he's the best striker in Europe, so by default he's going to score more goals, and you know what I mean? That's kind of what we wanted from Chelsea. It's kind of what we've also got from Chelsea over the years. But when it comes to trust in the process, when it comes to believing that we're not just buying a load of young players and stockpiling them to make money, which is like part of the reason why we're doing this, but at the same time, when you look at the way that the Chelsea team developed last season, we can learn a lot from the last 5-6 games under Mauricio Pochettino. And to be quite honest, as much as time goes on, I start to realise something a lot more. When it comes to Pochettino, I think there is only a certain level of like tactical, stylistic play that you can get to. When you look at the differences between a Pochettino pre-season when it's just run, run, run. Caicedo was saying it himself. He was expected to do so much running in this Chelsea team. And you look at the way that immediately in an Enzo Maresca Chelsea pre-season so far, from the very small amount of images, videos that we have got, you see that the players are doing a lot of work with the ball. It's not just about fitness, but I do believe that this is going to be something that will see Chelsea be able to develop, which is why the Marc Guius of this world, the Kenan J Halls, the Renato Vegas, as much as, I don't know, I think a few months ago I'd have been like, it's just another load of youngsters that we're signing, but what's the plan here? Is it actually fitting in with this so-called project of investing in our future to have a squad capable of getting 100 points? Which, if you look at all of the things that the ownership have said, yes, there are a lot of things that are a bit far-fetched and we seem very far away from it right now. But between all three of these new signings, I can absolutely see the direction, finally, that the club are trying to go to. And I don't think it's just me that it's been a slow burning process. A lot of the youngsters that we have brought in, yeah, you knew they were going to be good. Cole Palmer, within a month or two of being a Chelsea player, you're like, blimey. No wonder we've just splashed 40 million on this kid. Nicholas Jackson, amazing return, relatively unknown player. And even now in the transfer market, we talk about Chelsea wanting Nico Williams, but we don't want to break the bank. We don't want to pay the agent crazy fees. You look at the Samu Omorodions of this world, who another very young, inexperienced striker, but there's a reason Atletico Madrid are trying to slap an 80 million to 100 million release clause on him. Chelsea are ahead of the curve. And that is why, when we first of all here talk about Marc Guiu, this could end up being one of those signings that at £6 million, when a player signs for that little amount of money in the modern footballing world, the expectation isn't there. When Chelsea go and spend 30 million on Nicholas Jackson, and we look at him and he's like, right, you're the striker. When Nicholas Jackson starts to miss chances last season, because we've already spent 30 million, and from the footballing eyes of those that aren't really looking too deep into the finances, when you see Nicholas Jackson missing a load of chances, you're like, well, why didn't we spend 45 million on a player that's a little bit older that would have converted those chances? He's inexperienced. Is he worth the 30 million? The questions that we ask about whether or not a player is a good sign-in is usually based on their experience levels, the trade-off that is then relative to the price that we've bought him in for, and are we actually achieving what we need to achieve, or have we just bought an average player and we're not getting anywhere? With Marc Guiu coming in at 18 years old, he's already had an impact at Barcelona. And when we're looking at positional play here from different strikers, he's big, he's strong, and he's got this something about his personality where it looks to me as though this guy wants to go right to the top. He's come to Chelsea because he was sold on the project. Not necessarily because he wanted to leave Barcelona, but Barcelona couldn't offer him a project where he's like, I see where I fit in here. And I think with Marc Guiu joining Chelsea, bringing it back to what we said about the difference between a Pochettino Chelsea and an Enzo Maresca Chelsea, and what we're seeing immediately on the training ground is with Enzo Maresca, there is going to be a way that Chelsea are going to need to learn. There is going to be methodology behind what is expected of each player in each position in identifiable roles, game by game, and hopefully, as much as we can all say, well, yeah, philosophy-based managers, it doesn't always work. It doesn't guarantee you success. One thing that I really want to see from Maresca at the start of this season, and what we didn't see from Pochettino enough last season until the very end, is variance and adaptability. And I think when you've got an 18-year-old striker where the expectation at 6 million quid doesn't necessarily put this huge weight on his shoulders that can often bog Chelsea strikers down, I think the role of Marc Guiu is to, if it is to go on loan, then it's to go on loan. There's a lot of trucks going past today. I do apologise for this. But if he is in and around the squad and he's hungry and he believes in what he's been brought here to do, let him come off the bench and give him that opportunity. If Nicholas Jackson is missing or Nkunku isn't fit, or just give the man a chance. And I think what I really didn't like last season about the fact that when Chelsea was struggling to score, we had David Washington, who was brought in, the young Brazilian, as a striker and a goal scorer, but we never saw him. And I think for me, if we see something similar from Marc Guiu this season, where he doesn't get opportunities, even when Chelsea can't convert, then that is when I start to question again what the process is. That's when I start to question whether or not this was just he's really cheap now, and even if we get 10 million for him, then that's the benefit of the deal. And it's not about the quality of the player and the role that the manager wants him to have. I don't think this is going to be the case, and I'm very excited about Marc Guiu. We move now into Kenan Dewsbury-Hall. We've done a video already talking about how Chelsea set up, with Dewsbury-Hall being a really important figure in a 4-3-3 Maresca team. There's also a good video that I watched earlier today where Jan is talking about a 3-2-4-1 that sees Kenan Dewsbury-Hall in the midfield in a slightly more advanced role, with Caicedo centrally, with Enzo Fernandez being one of those players in the pivot with an inverted fullback, which kind of ties in when you see what I've done on the screen with what we could see with Renato Vega at Chelsea as this video goes on. But with Kenan Dewsbury-Hall, the role of this guy was so important at Leicester for Enzo Maresca. And I think, to be quite honest, as much as we've spent £200 million on a midfield of Caicedo, Enzo, and most of the time last season until the end where Caicedo was literally just leagues above pretty much every midfielder in the league, I think Conor Gallagher was the standout player last season, but there were still concerns and questions about what exactly it was that Gallagher brought to the team. It wasn't just the work rate. There were goals in there, there were assists in there too. But in terms of that ability to run with the ball, to carry the ball, to be smart and intelligent enough at times to not just be running around, but to be able to see something happen before it's happened. What Chelsea need to get better at is what Man City do so well, which is knowing 2 or 3 passes ahead of time where the ball's going next, circulating the play. And it's exactly what Maresca does. And look, the man has worked under Pep Guardiola. So to expect Chelsea to not be good with this and improving at this is crazy. So with Dewsbury-Hall coming in, the reason I think he might suit playing under a Maresca Chelsea setup more than a Conor Gallagher is because I think Dewsbury-Hall in the final third is a better finisher, and I think he can do a lot more with it in those positions than what we have seen so far from Conor Gallagher. I also think there's definitely a world where rotation will be massive, and I think Gallagher will want to stay at Chelsea, even if he doesn't have 37 starts that he had last season under Maurizio Pochettino. With Dewsbury-Hall, he does have defensive work rate in his favour as well, but it's not necessarily as good and as strong as what he can do in the final third. We're talking double figures for both goals and assists that you guys can see here. And I think Dewsbury-Hall brings us tactical versatility. I think it gives us the ability to maybe see a pivot of a Caicedo and an Enzo, and he can be more of the advanced central player if Palmer's on the right. Overall, I think Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is going to bring quality, goals, assists, and a player that already knows how Maresca wants him to work, how he wants him to play. Could be massive for Chelsea moving forward. Now, to finish off this video, let's talk a little bit here about Renato Veiga. He's 20 years old. He's Portuguese. He played a lot of last season in the left centre-back position for Basel, but can also play at left-back and also in a defensive midfield role, which fits in perfectly with the way that Enzo Maresca wants to have an inverted fullback that can comfortably move and control the tempo of a game in the midfield, something that Marc has done incredibly well. There is a part of me here that thinks, with the potential to sell Cucurella, which I really hope Chelsea don't do it, but we are being told on a consistent basis that if a good offer is to come in for Cucurella this summer, then Chelsea may be willing to sell him, which is potentially why Vega has been bought in. And once again, at 14 million, it's not risky. There isn't much here at stake where it's basically like £12 million, £11 million for a player with massive potential. If you've got Marc Cucurella in there, you don't really expect Renato Vega to be starting. You don't think he's going to get many minutes, but a lot can happen, particularly with the way that Cucurella has been so good for Spain, was so good for Chelsea at the end of last season. And if Chelsea do see themselves making money here, then we might have to deal with Ben Chilwell at left back. But then I think very quickly, because of the way that Maresca wants to play, because of that philosophy style of football where every player needs to understand the meaning of every pass, every player needs to positionally be aware of when he's got the ball, this is what I do off of it. Something that Chelsea have struggled massively with over the course of the last few years. We've been bad at premeditating things. We've been bad at understanding the actual overall process of building a proper attack, breaking through the lines. We've been too pedestrian. It's been too side to side. It's been slowed down by having centre-backs who are more than happy to just sit on the ball, not go forwards, which is what Renato Vega wants to do. So I think in terms of looking at all three of these new Chelsea signings, Vega, Guiu and Dewsbury-Hall, as much as none of them are like the big, marquee, crazy £100 million players, I still don't think in terms of a striker I'm confident that we've got a player that can get 25 goals a season other than Cole Palmer, but he's not a striker. You add Cole Palmer's industry to a striker that can also deliver those numbers, and blimey, that's how you start winning titles. But I think we're building something here. Over the course of the last couple of videos, I've been a lot more optimistic about what we're seeing from Chelsea moving forward. I'm excited for the beginning of this Enzo Maresca for the beginning of this Enzo Maresca era. And if you guys enjoyed this video, smack a like on it. Let me know what you think of the three signings we discussed today in the comments down below. And where do you see Chelsea's transfer window going from here? What do you want to see? What do we need? Thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you are new. Come on, you Blues.